Hey everyone, I am hopefully live a few minutes early. We'll see how it works. Um, I am Jen Lee, and I always try to get these going a few minutes early because half the time one streaming option doesn't connect and another one does. So we'll see. I have the most problems with Facebook. So if anyone knows how to do Facebook groups better than I do, please let me know. LinkedIn usually works pretty well. YouTube works pretty well. Um, but Facebook causes problems for me. So I will go ahead and we're going to get started because we're going to talk about ChatGPT, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jen Lee. I am an attorney and I do a lot of consulting and talking about legal tech and automations and law firm management and law firm design these days because I find it so very much an interesting topic. And so this live stream came up a couple days ago. Someone was asking in a Facebook group, who's using AI? What do you use it for? How does it all work? And so I thought I would do a quick live. I'm going to do some demos and that kind of thing, but definitely wanted to show you kind of what you can do with ChatGPT and a few other things. And so I'm going to do a PowerPoint I will put up and I will start my slideshow. And it's always amazing the things that you can do with ChatGPT. Like you don't realize what may be going on or what could be going on in the background. So whenever I see something new, I'm like, oh, that's cool. I wonder if I can try this instead. So a lot of this stuff is experimentation. Like you have to figure it out. I am not going to go into all of the ethical rules of how like you have to be careful with ChatGPT. You can't use any of these AIs and just assume that it's all correct, assume that it's not hallucinating things, it's not doing crazy things that is made up. I'm not going to get into all of that. This is more like how do you do it? What do you use it for kind of discussion. You have to be careful with it no matter what. And if you stay till the end, I do have the ultimate secret here on this particular presentation and discussion. So please hang out till the end to see that. So let's jump in and talk about ChatGPT and what I did with it. So ChatGPT, you can use anything you can pretty much imagine that you have a question on or that you want to ask it. You can ask it anything. I use it as my search engine these days. And if you are on Google, a lot of times when you ask Google things, it'll pop up AI generated content anyway. AI has been around for a lot longer than we think it has been. If you use Grammarly, if you use spell check, those things have all been versions of AI. And I'm not an AI expert. I just like to use new tools that come out and then start incorporating them into my workshop and my online courses and things like that. So all of my classes and workshops now have some component of how can I use AI to make this easier as part of the discussion. I'll talk about that a little later when we get into some of the questions that were asked. So you can use ChatGPT to brainstorm legal arguments in seconds. You can upload something. I have an example I'll show you, but you can upload things and say, hey, I have this complaint. Can you give me the legal arguments against this? Or what is my opponent likely to argue? And sometimes it'll come up with the standard things. Sometimes it'll come up with nonsense. But most of the time, it'll come up with something you may not have thought of. So it's more of a brainstorming tool in that respect, not a drafting tool like here's your final product. I also have used it quite a bit for creating client communication, especially if you are someone who, like, you get tons and tons and tons of emails. It's hard to respond to them. And you just want to respond back with a pretty easy, straightforward answer. A lot of times, ChatGPT is a good option for that. It'll say, hey, dear client, and you have to put the client's information in. It could be maybe it's a potential client reaching out to schedule an appointment, and they want to know if you handle family law. And if you don't already have a template for that, ChatGPT can create a template that says, yes, my firm handles family law, and it'll just draft it all for you, copy paste, and it's like 10 seconds. Um, and sometimes you'll do that once if you create a template for it, but it's also really easy to just drop that language into ChatGPT and it'll pop a response up. You copy paste it, make sure that it looks the way you want it to look, because I'm a little bit of a stickler for formatting. And then you send it. And then automating repetitive tasks, there are a lot of things that can be automated with ChatGPT. I am not going to get into the super integrated nuts and bolts type things, but you can integrate your like your scheduling software with a confirmation email that puts it into your client case management system. All of that can be automated with various GPTs. And a lot of the programs have their own integrations these days, but automating those repetitive tasks can be a real time saver for law firms. There are endless possibilities. What I often hear from lawyers is, I can't use those tools because someone in New York got sanctioned for filing hallucination cases that didn't exist. There are so many more things you can do with ChatGPT than use it for drafting and legal research. I would not use it for legal research. I may throw something in there to give me a starting place, and then I'll go look up actual cases, but I'm not going to use it as my end all, here's my final draft, Your Honor, type drafting. But you can use it to draft emails, templates, forms. It will create checklists. I'm going to show you how I'd create a checklist for me here in a few minutes. It will brainstorm content with you. If you are a person who you know you should be doing something, a lot of times it's in the marketing world or it's in the video, social media, you know you should be doing things, but you run into that roadblock of, I don't know what to talk about. This is too overwhelming for me, so I'm just not going to do it. ChatGPT is great for those brainstorming things. You do have to watch your prompts sometimes and tell it, that's not what I mean. Go back. I don't want to do it. That's not what I meant, or reframe it like this. I've asked it to be super sarcastic. I've asked it to be, I have my Rebel Esquire as my superhero alter ego. And so I will ask it to write things as a superhero sometimes. You can ask it all kinds of things. That's very creative. And so anyone who thinks that it's just regurgitating content and it's not original thoughts, it helps you create original thoughts, is how I look at it. You can use it to simplify legal terms for your clients. You can create FAQs with it. It can save you hours and hours of time writing out checklists, FAQs, scripts, automating administrative tasks. So there are so many things out there that don't involve getting sanctioned by court that you can do with ChatGPT. I'll keep going. So let's actually look to see what ChatGPT can do. And I have some prompts that I had originally put up for the purposes of demonstrating today. And some of it's because I wanted to make sure that I had good things to show you and not just like things that I work on every day. I want it to be more of a interactive type discussion. So I am going to share, see if I can here. I'm going to pop this open real quick. Move it to a new window so you don't see my 80,000 tabs that are open, which is quite embarrassing. And I will share a new screen. So I'm going to share ChatGPT. Okay, so you should see ChatGPT up on the screen now. And it should be just, this is the 4.0, this is the basic ChatGPT that's out there. If you look under the tab up here, it says great for most tasks. There's Canvas, you can collaborate on writing and code. There's advanced reasoning, which you can't upload anything to. There's Mini, which is a very quick response. And there's more models out there. There's the legacy model. There's all kinds of things out there. I do pay for ChatGPT. It's $20 a month for the one I pay for. I have also created my own GPTs. I have one called Bernadette, which is a bankruptcy attorney. It's been instructed to know that it's a bankruptcy attorney and write with my bankruptcy attorney style. I have one that I use for consulting that is my marketing muse and not when I'm brainstorming things. So you can create your own GPTs. I talk about that in some of my online courses where we're starting to create GPTs to automate some of these things. So let's jump in with a couple of examples here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it. I'm going to say, pretend you are a consumer bankruptcy attorney, because you often have to set the stage with ChatGPT. And it does remember, like in your account, there's memory in there. And again, not going into all the ethics of what it knows. Not putting any client information here. But I often will tell it if I wanted to assume a persona, if I wanted to assume a profession. I wanted it to create a checklist for my paralegal to follow whenever they are preparing a bankruptcy petition in your bankruptcy software, which is often an ask by bankruptcy attorneys. They're like, how do we train our paralegals? How do we create checklists? How do we create tools? ChatGPT that. So I don't know exactly what it'll say. We'll see what it comes up with. So it came up with a whole bunch of stuff, Sarah. So it starts with verifying client information, full name and aliases, which is one of my pet peeves when it comes to bankruptcy petitions. So I like to see that in there. Household size, make sure that you know what type of bankruptcy you're filing, getting all the employment income from the last 6 months, ensuring that the means test is completed. Now you could break all of these down into very, very minute steps, and you could go back and ask it, okay, what does ensure compliance with the means test mean? How do I do that? Or how do I teach the paralegal that? You could go in and ask it that. It's still generating here. All of the things that go into completing all the schedules, making sure they complete the credit counseling certificate, if there's a Chapter 13 plan, gives you quality control and submission. It gives you all of these things. And it says down here, the checklist is intended to help your paralegal, ensure accuracy, get things done. And you're like, well, great. That is fantastic, but this isn't helpful for me. So a couple things you can do with chat is you can download this. If you click right here, it's going to copy, and you can copy paste it directly into Word. I'll show you what that looks like. If I were to take this and copy paste it into Word, I'm going to open up a Word doc and share that with you real quick so you can see what that looks like. And I'll show you a couple of tricks here. So I copy pasted it into Word. I'm going to share real quick what that Word doc looks like, because it's switching between screens, mostly because I'm scared if you guys saw all the tabs open, you would freak out. So what I did was I clicked that copy button at the bottom that it generated, and it came up with this. It's not formatted pretty. So a trick to this, I'm going to go back and share again. So lots of show and tell here. I do like showing and telling. It doesn't look pretty. So one of the tricks that I used for this is I will just go and highlight all the way down the things that I want to include in my checklist. And now if I go to Word, go to my Microsoft Word again, and I highlight all this and I copy paste, and there it has the formatting. So I don't use that copy button very often at the bottom. There are other things you can do, like all the asterisks. You could do find replace with nothing if you wanted to, but to me, this is so much cleaner that I just highlight and copy if I'm looking, especially for formatting things like this. So at this point, you could go through, you could copy it, you can do it, but you ask it to create a checklist. So one thing you could ask it to do, instead of copy pasting it into there, one thing you could go in and do is, I'm going to refresh this real quick here. Let's see if this will work. I have too many things open. One more thing. Okay. So how about if I go in and I ask it to create me a download instead of a copy paste that I have to put into Word and format myself. So I'm going to ask it, can you create a download? I'm trying to figure out, make sure the wording is correct with this checklist and then format it as a checklist. I'm trying to see what it'll do because sometimes it'll do things and sometimes it, it has an attitude sometimes. And so it's thinking, first of all, can I do that? It'll create graphics for you too. My mom uses ChatGPT to create all kinds of crazy graphics for her quilt store. So it's thinking, I know it can do this because I actually can share what it'll come up with because I've done this before once or twice. And if it doesn't hurry up and do something, I will share my checklist that I already had. Okay, so I'm going to download the one that it gave me here and see what it looks like. And then I'll flop it over to Word so you can see. So it gave it to me as Word. And let me open it up quick and share it for you. So let's share the bankruptcy checklist it just created. Okay, so this is what it kicked out in Word. Nice checklist format with all the things that you could do. You could put it into a PDF form if you wanted. You could create an online form with it. So you didn't even have to copy paste it. Just ask ChatGPT to create that checklist for you, and it'll create a download for you. So that's one example. Let me go back to my PowerPoint real quick and see what kind of other fun things we can do. So I did the create a bankruptcy checklist, and I did it from the standpoint of a paralegal because we often want to create internal documents and internal standards of procedures. And so that's a good way to do it. You could also create that checklist for clients if you wanted them to have a checklist to look at. Going into the delegating. So let's talk about how to delegate things with ChatGPT and what that looks like. So you can use ChatGPT to define tasks for your virtual assistant. You can find and hire and onboard the right virtual assistant, and you can outsource very efficiently with ChatGPT. And yes, ChatGPT is kind of like a virtual assistant. It can do a lot of those things, but there's also formatting and things that you want a virtual assistant to be able to do. And I do have a program that's coming out next month on legal leverage and how to find, hire, and onboard the right virtual assistant. So I'm going to share some prompts in there. And then of course, we use ChatGPT in the course to teach you how to do this yourself. So let's go back into CAT. If I can find it on my list of things to do here. Okay, so I'm still back in ChatGPT. And I'm going to, let's see, what are some of the questions that we usually get with outsourcing? Okay. The number one question we get, and it's on my download on my website, it's a free download too, an option for it, is I want to hire a virtual assistant for my family law practice. Generate a list of tasks that I can outsource. And so if I put that in there, and some of these things will be legitimate things that you want to outsource, and some of them will be things that you would never want to outsource, but that's okay because you are using this to brainstorm, not as a final product. So what it came up with, it says intake. You can have a VA do your intake. You can help with calendar management, document management, correspondence, drafting things for you, preparing thank you notes, client follow-ups. You can use a virtual assistant to draft documents, especially if you have template-based documents where they are, going through and updating with your client's information. Of course, you're going to review anything that's legal work that your virtual assistant prepares, but it gives you a head start on things. And a lot of attorneys have their assistants doing their e-filing and court submissions, and updating their practice management system. Client communication, follow-ups with clients, updating clients on on case progress. All of those things can be outsourced to a VA. You can have them doing research on legal research markets. I had a great assistant a few years ago. It's probably been more than a few. It's probably like 10 or 11. And I would give her market research. I would say, go out and get research for me on whatever I was working on at the time. For a lot of it was financial stress in the workplace. And she would go out and find research for me and put it all together. And then now it would be great because she could use ChatGPT to combine it into a great report. Billing and financial tasks, you can have a virtual assistant do. And of course, you could use ChatGPT to ask, what can ChatGPT do for me as a lawyer? That's not cheating. But hopefully I'm giving you some good ideas for things that you can do. And then personal assistant tasks, even if you wanted to have a local assistant or someone who is ordering gifts and supplies, sending thank you baskets, booking your travel, all kinds of things that a virtual assistant can do. So just gives you an idea. There is a download on the Lawyer Success Network website of 100 things that you can outsource to a VA. And I will say that it wasn't entirely created by ChatGPT, but we did use some ideas there. That course is launching next month. There is a 50% off discount right now through December 1st that I will give you a code to at the end here. That's not the secret, by the way. At the end, that's not the secret. There's a Black Friday deal on some of my courses. So let's talk about marketing. Marketing and networking for lawyers can either be a very painful thing or fun. And I liked this graphic on here that this is a sign you've been looking for, that you need to use ChatGPT and have some fun with this. But you can use ChatGPT for marketing, for creating marketing materials, for creating social media posts. You can actually do research on people in ChatGPT. You can type in, if you know if they have a website or their LinkedIn profile, you can ask ChatGPT to give you a summary of this person's experience, what they work on. I've done that for networking groups before. It's not just a parlor trick. So you can definitely use ChatGPT for marketing. I think this is the most common thing that lawyers jump to when they think about generating content like that, because generating content takes time, and ChatGPT does it very quickly, and it seems like a fairly safe thing. So I am going to jump back into ChatGPT and talk about marketing from a ChatGPT perspective. So let's jump into ChatGPT, and let's see. One of the most common things that we get is either creating social media posts or blog topics. So let's start with blog topics for a bankruptcy attorney. And I am pulling these prompts off of a gigantic list that I generated over the last few days. And the reason why I start with blog posts is because a lot of attorneys know they should be blogging, doing videos. They just don't know where to start. And so I asked ChatGPT to generate 5 blog posts for a bankruptcy attorney targeting people overwhelmed by debt. And it came up with 5 signs it's time to consider bankruptcy, Chapter 7, verses 13, what happens to your credit score after bankruptcy, the bankruptcy myths keeping you stuck in debt, how bankruptcy stops foreclosure, wage garnishment. And so one thing that if you know me as a bankruptcy attorney, you'll know that I don't really like the B word, especially in my marketing, because most people don't know when they need a bankruptcy attorney. So let's say I don't like any of these topics because I don't want bankruptcy in there. I could tell ChatGPT, my clients don't like the word bankruptcy. Give me 5 more post topics that focus on financial stress, not the B word, because I don't want to have the word bankruptcy in all of my title. So they gave me overwhelmed by debt. Here's how to regain control, how to break free, what to do when you can't keep up with your bills, stopping credit harassment, things like that. So you can have it revise what you want to say. Let's say that let's say you are a bankruptcy attorney and you want to go back, you like the word bankruptcy and things because most bankruptcy attorneys do. And you decide that you want to do number two up here. You want to blog about number two. To say, I'd like to do a post on number two from the first list, chapter 7 versus chapter 13. Write a 500, that's a long word, blog post, and let's see, write a 500-word blog post on the topic and give it a catchier title. And let's see what it does. Okay, so now I gotta scroll back down because I was looking at it. So it gives you your introduction. It gives you what is chapter 7. It gives you what is chapter 13, who is chapter 7 for. Again, you have to make sure that it's actually correct, because the one thing about the media that I really despise is they get bankruptcy wrong all the time. And here's where you can add your hook in. You can add, if you do a free consultation, obviously this does not know me because I would never do a free consultation. But you have your whole blog post. You can read through it, you can edit it. You don't have to, I don't ever keep exactly what it spits out. I will edit and change things to make it fit my voice, but it gives you a really good point to start editing instead of staring at a blank screen because you're overwhelmed by the idea of marketing. So that's one idea for generating posts. Another option, like let's say you are a family law attorney and you've been told you need to be on Facebook and you need to post things on Facebook on your family law firm page. And so I gave it a very generic prompt here. I said, I want to market my family law firm on Facebook. What are some suggested posts that I should create? And again, it's brainstorming, because once you get this gigantic list of things, you can pick 1 to 10 of them and keep going down that rabbit hole of it'll keep creating content for you. So if you decide you want to do number 1, it will draft your post. It will create emojis and all kinds of fun things on there. It'll make it look pretty for you. So here it's generating educational posts, client-centered posts, engagement posts, inspirational posts, behind the scenes content where they get to meet somebody at your firm or you, video content, quick explainers. The great thing about the explainer videos is you can just tell it, great, I want to do what is no fault divorce. I want to do a video, write my script. And then what are my slides? Like if I were to do a PowerPoint with it, what are my slides? Can you generate my slides for me? It will do all those things. Call to action post, seasonal contents, testimonials, community involvement. And then I'll give you some tips for Facebook marketing. So you could go down this path of any of these things and it'll start generating content, graphics, slideshows if you wanted to create like the slide, like slide number 1, what's the most commonly asked questions? Slide number 2, it'll say, here's what you should put on your slide type thing. So that's marketing as a family law attorney. I have used ChatGPT for legal research. Someone just asked that if I've used it for legal research. Yes, with the caveat that I always check it and it's kind of giving me a starting point. But for example, I saw a post about this one day and it was someone was up against a trustee who was asking for a payable on death account to be turned over. It was an inherent, I'm not going to get into all the bankruptcy law issues, but I threw that into ChatGPT and it gave me a great response that could have been sent to a trustee with a little bit of editing. So if you have a trustee who sends you an email, you can throw that into ChatGPT and say draft a response from the other side. You don't have to put any, that doesn't have to be specific client information there. That's my only hesitation. I don't put client information in ChatGPT. don't care what they say about who has access to it or not. I just don't want it in there. So I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint real quick. And one example too, I have one more example here that's interesting after we get through marketing, talk about bankruptcy again. So I have a really cool program coming out next month, which is almost this month because it's coming out in December. And it's called Easy Not Lazy, Networking and Sales for Lawyers Who Think They Hate Networking and Sales. And it's because there's so many fun things you can do with networking, and it's a great way to build your business. And so many lawyers think that it's all about sales when it's really not. And so I had a really good time creating an online course for that. And so that is also discounted 50% off through December 1st. So, bankruptcy, that's my world. That's where I came from. I always joke that I'm a recovering bankruptcy lawyer. And these days I mostly help attorneys who want to add bankruptcy to their practice. I also help attorneys realize that they can charge for consultations. Even bankruptcy attorneys, even broke clients will pay for a consultation if you set it up correctly. I started charging for bankruptcy consults more than 10 years ago. And my business grew every year that I charged for consults. And no one in my area charged for consults. I always hear that excuse too. And you can charge for consults as a bankruptcy attorney. I promise you can do it. So I have transitioned the last 5 years into helping attorneys add bankruptcy as a practice area because there are not enough bankruptcy attorneys out there. There are some really good ones, but we need to keep building up the number of attorneys that are doing this kind of work. And so I've been helping attorneys add bankruptcy as a practice area now for almost 5 years since COVID started, because that's when everyone thought it would be booming. ChatGPT has come in really, really handy and now I do a live workshop. So I have one coming up December 13th and 14th for adding bankruptcy as a practice area. So in 10 hours, I can teach you how to add bankruptcy as a practice area. We go from the initial discussion of forecasting, cash flow, the different types of bankruptcy and court admissions, practice management software, bankruptcy software. We do demos of all of them. And then we get into chapter 7 and chapter 13 and what your client consult process looks like and what your workflows look like, and then marketing and all of the cool, again, I just like helping law firms set up practices because it's so much fun to figure out new and cool ways to do things. But as in that course, one of the things that I'm using ChatGPT for and training on is you can calculate chapter 13 payment plans using ChatGPT. It will give you the formulas, it'll give the calculations, it will give you narratives on how it was calculated. So sometimes we have problems explaining to our clients how we arrived at their plan payment. ChatGPT does a great job of creating a narrative so that your client can understand with what goes into their plan payment. So that's one thing that we do in one of the chapter 13 modules for my building a bankruptcy online workshop. There is a recorded version out there, but I also do a live one every once in a while because the live ones are so fun. We get so many great questions that it's fun for me to have that interaction. So I do live ones as well as the recorded one that's out there. So I'm gonna go back to sharing real quick because we're getting pretty far into this and I don't want to bore everybody too much. I'm gonna go back into ChatGPT. And this was one example that I wanted to use because you were just asking me about if I use it for legal research. And I do, but I more often use it for things like come up with arguments opposing counsel may come up with something like that. So in ChatGPT, what I'm going to do in here is I am going to upload a complaint and ask it what legal arguments can be made in opposition. So again, I told it it's a bankruptcy attorney because I'm switching back and forth between bankruptcy and family law on this example. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to attach in my downloads, I had just downloaded a dischargeability complaint for fun because I do read bankruptcy pleadings for fun, sadly. And so it's uploading, it's thinking, probably dealing with my bandwidth and streaming on Zoom and Restream here. Um, and if it doesn't pop this up, I already did this earlier, and I will just go into that one. See, sometimes it gets hung up. Maybe I used it too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop into my sidebar over here because I actually had already done some of these at one point today. I had already gone through and asked it to do this for me. Okay, so I had gone in, and this is the exact same prompt because I copied pasted it from my prompt, but I'm going to hide my sidebar over here so you'll have to look at see everything I'm searching. So I uploaded a chargeability complaint, that same one, and it said I asked it for arguments that can be made in opposition. And in this case, this is public record out there. I downloaded this from Pacer, so there's nothing in here that is attorney-client privilege at all. And so it went through all of the things. It read the 40-page complaint. It went through and took a look to see all of the things that could be defenses, arguments that you could make, and gave me those things. So it's a good place to start. Again, you have to check it. You have to make sure that it's correct and that kind of thing. But that's an example of how you could upload a pleading that's been filed, and as long as it's public record in a case, you could do that. This wasn't one of my cases. This was one that I happen to be following because I'm a nerd who follows tons of bankruptcy cases. So I'm going to jump back in and see where we're at. We're almost, there's just some too many things to discuss. So for the building a bankruptcy practice, this, like I said, this is my favorite workshop. I do have a few spots open for the December 13th and 14th workshop. It is discounted through December 1st for Black Friday. I will give you a link. If anyone's interested in the Black Friday sales, they're on our website. And it's just lawyersuccessnetwork.com. I think it's /store probably. So I have tons of Black Friday offers out there. The building a bankruptcy practice is my signature one. That is discounted. It's one of the bigger discounts that I do in that course because it's fairly inexpensive. It's less than the cost of one single bankruptcy case to have the entire course. The second one on here is the legal leverage, and that's how you find, post, hire, onboard a virtual assistant, and that is done with my virtual assistant. We tag teamed that one. That one is just kind of 50% off through December 1st. Easy, not sleazy. There's my networking and sales course that's coming in December. December 16th, I think, is the launch sheet on that one. And that's 50% off pre-launch through December 1st. And then a few years ago, I did a course called Launch, and that's all about if you want to design out either a new practice area in your firm or start a new firm, that is designed to help you figure out the things that you should be thinking about. Instead of thinking about bank accounts and malpractice insurance, it goes into your law firm design so you can actually be happy with what you're doing. So that is discounted at 50% off. And finally, number 5 is one of my favorite videos that I've ever done. And it's called Free is the New F Word. It was designed for attorneys who think they can't charge for consultations because they'll be broke and no one will hire them, which is totally false. And I've had other professions take that one as well. It's normally $17. It's the smallest little ask out there. That one is even discounted. That one is 25% off through December 1st at midnight. So visit lawyersuccessnetwork.com. It's in the store on there, the Black Friday sales. If you don't see them, message me and I will send you the link to the Black Friday page. It's hard to share sometimes on the streaming. And I'll get to my final secret. So the final secret was ChatGPT actually created this whole presentation and Typeset created this entire deck. It took me about 8 minutes to make this entire presentation. So, and Typeset is it's an AI that creates decks, creates social media posts, creates ebooks, content, things like that. And so I use ChatGPT in conjunction with Typeset to create everything. So it designed this all out. It put my branding on it. And then all I had to do was go through and make sure that it was what I wanted it to be. So use ChatGPT as much as you can. You can create webinars, you can create all kinds of things. If you have questions, I'm going to stop this and jump back on. If you have questions about ChatGPT or any of the Black Friday sales I have going on or any of the other services that I offer, because I, again, have so much fun helping lawyers figure out how not to bill by the hour. And there are so many things that you can sell that doesn't involve your time. Reach out to me, and I will have more live videos in the next few days too. And just keep checking in and let me know if you have questions. But let's see. I don't see anything else in chat. I had a couple questions, but that was it. So good to see you all. And let me know if you have questions, and I will talk to you later.